Good deal. So thanks for everybody joining. As for those that haven't been here the last couple of weeks, I'm filling in for Anthony while he's out, and a great opportunity for me to kind of run through, kind of really what our philosophy is and how we train and lead and whatnot. Our agents on our team, Anthony and I, so the first week was all about lead generation, and kind of almost like a mythbuster type episode around that. Last week was systems, and a system is, my definition is essentially like the actual, like it's almost like the physical element that tells you what to do and who to lead generate to, and removing memory from the equation. So basically your system is set up to where you're just told who to call or what to do every single day. And hopefully you can build it out to where if you've got a goal of whatever your economic model or whatever your lead generation plan tells you to do, if it's you got to have 20 conversations a day as an example, hopefully you could set up a system to where that's just feeding those conversations day in and day out. And that's been the progression so far. Today we're going to talk about database, and this is on my end as a leader of our team. I try to keep it as simple as possible in terms of what we focus on. And if you ask one of the agents that are with us, they're probably sick of it at this point, and maybe I need to mix it up, but all we talk about is lead gen, database, systems. Three topics that encompasses pretty much everything that we need to focus on as agents in this business. And then there's different layers within those topics, obviously. But all we do, how I coach, how I train, like what we work on, what we try to set up as best as possible is around those topics: lead gen, database, systems. So today, and it all coincides together. They're all interconnected, right? You're lead generating using a system to tell you who to lead generate to and when, and you're getting those contacts from a database, right? So it's all essentially interconnected, and how to think of this business in its simplest concepts. And don't get me wrong, the problem with life, I guess, is that there's this element of, okay, all this sounds easy, quote unquote, but there's just the I'll be blunt, the thing that people, and I'll take a time out and I'll say, first of all, by no means am I ever speaking on a pedestal to where like I'm not vulnerable to any of the issues that anybody else has. It's important for us to know we're all in the same boat. And I don't care who it is. If you get whatever, sure, there could be an outlier, but even top performers in this industry, they're going to struggle with the same stuff that anybody else would, coming into the business, a couple years into the business, whatever. And, I think that struggle is just the human nature element of, like, to be blunt, like, okay, you got the formula, now you got to get off your ass and do it. Right. And that's a real life, like, difficult. It's difficult, guys. I'm here to be vulnerable with you for a minute to let you know that we're all in the same boat, struggling with the same stuff. And I guess the way that I think about it is, if you can keep the focus as simplex as possible, then that just, it makes it easier to actually, just do it. Right. So that's kind of my logic and how I think of it. So anyway, dive into database as the topic of the day. And I think I gave Sophie the title of your database and your relationship to it. That's a Gary Keller line. I don't know if he made it up, but probably did. And it's just so important. Okay. And another line is that your business is the size of your database. And that's so true, because however many people you're lead generating to and marketing to is going to dictate how big of a business you have the possibility for, anyway. Okay. It doesn't always lead to like direct success because again, there's that element of like, you got to do it. Just if you have a list of, a whole bunch of people that you're just staring at and not doing anything with, it doesn't do you any good. Right. So your ability to market and lead generate to your database is the business. So as big as you can make that database is a thing. Okay. So get a little interaction going here. I want to hear from a couple people. Like when I say database, tell me what you think of. When you hear the term database, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What do you think of in terms of, what that should be? Fire away. I'm going to start picking on people. Greg, you're my man. Sorry to pick on you, man. What do you think of when you hear the term database relative to this business?
Any and everybody that you can reach out to, whether, and there's levels to the database. There's the people whose numbers you have saved and they have your number saved with the actual name and contact and stuff. And then there are those a little far out that you can still reach out to in your social media platforms. You may not follow them, you may not know them, but they know you and of you, and then whatever is in between. But the database, like everybody you can get in front of that is familiar with you closely, or they seen you around.
Great answer. And that's exactly it. Because that really just, essentially we're going to unpack today what Greg just said, because one of the aspects, and I think you mentioned it, was there's different layers of it, right? So you can, I wanted to start with just this question of like, hey, what do you think of when you hear the term database? Because it is, there does need to be clarity established in order for you to know what to focus on and to where to apply the focus of your lead generation effort, and where to be systematic with, right? So knowing like what to focus on in terms of your database starting off, if you're newer in the business or haven't dove into this fully yet, is super important. And then you can expand from there. So, I think when I hear database, like I two things. Like one, you could just think of anybody out there in the world, right? Can be potential to be in your database, can have potential to be in your database. And this is a KW jargon type thing to where there's two categories: the people that you've met and then the people that you have not met, right? So all the people you met are going to be in this circle. And then there's everybody else out there in the world that you have not met that, depending on your business plan, you may try to, capture eventually or somehow, and then market and lead generate to in order to build that relationship. So, you can go as big with this as you want to. So from there, it's like, where do you start? Right? Because I think it's dangerous to just say, okay, I'm going to go out and there's a million people in Monroe County and Rochester, where Rochester is, and I'm going to go out and send a mailer to every one of those people. Like, obviously that's not practical. Right? Or I'm going to market to every one of those people, or I'm going to lead generate to every one of those people. Obviously, it's not practical. So, starting off small, so to speak, and then working your way up, I think is very much the concept in play here. So here's how I think of the beginning steps to, if you are just a brand new agent in the business, this is your first day and you're on this call, here's what I would be telling you. Is, and if you've been on the calls up to this point last few weeks, I apologize for all my analogies, but I'm definitely full of them. So the analogy I use for what I want to get across here is the wedding list analogy. Okay. And the concept that I would get across is that, say you and your spouse, you and your fiance, whatever, have no budget to the wedding that you want to throw. And both sides of the family just want to have the blowout party, like 500 person guest list, right? Even more, whatever it is. So if they're getting an invite to your wedding, you know them and they know you. Now, there can be, like this, think of this massive wedding, right? Like dad's going to invite his poker buddies, mom's inviting, the Tupperware party clan that she hosts every other month or whatever. So there's going to be people that you may not necessarily know, but they know of you and you know of them. And, especially relative to like your parents or your close family members and friends of their friends that would like want to hear from you or want to potentially support you or be, like think that it's cool or whatever you want to call it if they get something in the mail from you. And that's the example of like, again, your dad's poker buddies or whatever, and again, back to the wedding analogy, like, yeah, if you're having a wedding and a lot of times like dad's helping pay for it, right? He's going to invite his buddies too. And that's just how it goes. And those should be people that you're marketing to. And that's your initial, the common term is sphere of influence, right? Like that's your initial sphere of influence is that wedding list analogy. So starting off on day one in this business, your first task is build that list, build that wedding list and get as many people on it as you can with the notion of like, there's no budget to my wedding. I'm inviting anybody and everybody. Now you're keeping, I guess with that analogy is also like, okay, you want to keep it to where there's a relationship. Okay. So you may not invite, somebody from your kindergarten class that you haven't talked to in 30 years to your wedding, right? But that would be, another layer of the database as you add to it. So this wedding list, however big you can make it, assuming there's no budget, is step one, day one of in the business, is to build that list, and then essentially to, lead generate to it, set up a marketing plan for it, set up a system for how you're going to stay consistent in those categories moving forward. I mean, that's if that's not, something that's been done in your business yet, drop what you're doing and don't do anything else until you do that. Okay. Because these are people that and they know you. And those are the people that matter the most for your business. And think of it from the standpoint of conversion percentages, right? In terms of your likelihood to convert from who you're marketing to is going to be a much higher percentage with people in comparison to the people that you don't know. So if you're consistent with a lead generation plan and a marketing plan, and you're doing it with the people that 100 out of 100 times, that's the plan to execute on, in comparison to not having a list of people that, or having a list of people that you're marketing to that is in large, people you don't know. And, so the example of that would be like, farming a neighborhood. Okay. Or, online leads in the day and age that we're in with that. I heard the other day, and I've heard it before, but it's good reiteration. You're looking at about a 12-to-1 conversion on your sphere of influence and the people and probably at best 50-to-1 on the people you don't know. So if you're a betting person, which odds would you take, right? Fairly obvious. So how you get that wedding list is really, you know, going to be different for each person in their walk of life up to this point, right? But, you know, starting off, I mean, you just gotta, yeah, I mean, you go through your social media accounts. The beauty of the day and age that we live in, right, is all this information is just out there and up for grabs. We just got to find a way to get organized around it and be purposeful with you know, adding it to our list. Because when I say database and when I refer to database, it's relative to the people, not so much like the, you know, command as a platform for it. Okay. Command is the storage holder of all your people in your database, but, you know, and it's a part of it, but like we're talking about the actual list of people when I refer to database, when database is referred to. And I think also it's important to say that, you know, at least how I think of it, most times when I just will casually say database to one of our agents, it's referring to the sphere of influence list. Because then there's like, I mean, I'll give you an example. Anthony and I have a database of all the people that we haven't met. And we've been building this since 2014 that has 30,000 people in it. And that's also a database, right? But like, I want to focus the effort on the people that we know and already have some sort of a relationship with, compared to, you know, a bunch of online leads that have been captured by us over the years. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not to say that you know, I say here's the concept really is there's no such thing as bad data as long as the information is correct for that person. Okay. And the reason for that is that you've got the ability to, the way I think of it is cement and saturate over time to where, you know, eventually if you're marketing consistently and lead generating consistently to people, eventually it'll be cemented that you're in real estate with them and you're a resource for real estate for them. And then as you saturate that forever in a never ending fashion, it's going to get to the point where they really have no choice but to remember that you're in real estate and you can be a resource to them. Now they have a choice to use you or not. And that's always going to be frustrating in this business. But if you're positioned to where as many people as possible have no choice but to remember that you're in real estate, that's the name of the game. And doing this, starting with the tight knit circle, which would be your wedding list, and then expanding the layers from there is how I think of how to go about it. Does anybody have any questions so far? I mean, this is, you know, fairly straightforward stuff, right? You know, you're starting your business off, or even, you know, no matter what stage of the business you're in, make sure that the focus is on that wedding list, is on the people that you know, they know you. You know, you don't have to be best friends with everybody, right? It's not like you only limit your focus of marketing to, you know, the people that you see on Christmas Eve or whatever example, but anybody that would recognize you or recognize your name or recognize your face because there's a pre-existing relationship that you need to be marketing to them. And you need to not have any fear about it. And this is where the opportunity becomes huge for a lot of people, because all of us here, and prove me wrong if anybody feels confident, but all of us here have people that should be in our database, myself included, that should be in our database that is not currently. And a lot of the reason why they're not is that, you know, there's just there's a fear or a mental block or whatever around, you know, that, wow, it's been so long and it's either going to be awkward, or, you know, they don't want to hear from me, or, you know, whatever the example is. Back to the lead generation class, or, you know, hour that we had 2 weeks ago. you got to keep in mind that people got their own stuff going on. They really, I don't mean to be negative, but they really don't care, you know, what you got going on and what you're doing, to the point where like they're going to be offended or upset or whatever that you're either lead generating to them or marketing to them. And just how the science of the brain works is that every time somebody gets a postcard from you in the mail, for example, that counts towards something good, because something's happening up there when they see that. Even if they throw it in the trash 2 seconds later, it still counts. So just by assuming that people don't want to hear from you or don't want to see what you're putting out there is just a massive limiting belief that a lot of people have. Now, let's talk about the additional layers, right? Like, you have your wedding list established. From there, then what? Then what is, you go through any and everybody else that you can, right? So this is where it's like any past job that you've had and people, within that you can pick off from, going through the high school yearbook type of stuff, going, past sports teams, college, just any walk of life that you've had up until now. There's been people in it with you, and you need to make sure that they're now present to what you're doing with your business. But these are people that would not get invited to your wedding. So you still market to them.
So have you ever?
Now, this is where it gets a little kind of complicated in terms of, having a, for like example, a mailer list, right? Like, postage is an expense / an investment, right? So, I get it to where, like, Greg, I'll go back to you. You mentioned you have, 2,000 people in your database. Like, I can understand to where, that's a big budget to have if you're going to send a mailer every month to every one of those people, right? So you can be selective with how you market to it, but having that list of people that's as wide and as big as possible is a huge thing, because it doesn't cost you anything to send a text message or DM or a phone call. And, generally speaking, emails are either, affordable or free, depending on how you do it. And when I say affordable, like, for example, we use Constant Contact for our, we do multiple email blasts a month to our database. And, there's different tiers of how many contacts you have. But I mean, you're, for it to get expensive, you're sending out, tens and tens of thousands of emails a month. So there's cost effective options to where you could still stay in front of people and not send them something in the mail at however much, a stamp is these days, 58 cents or whatever it is, right? So, be purposeful with your database as a conversation too. And, making sure that you just always cover as many layers of life up until this point is very important. Okay. So just going deep, after that wedding list analogy, going deep into like, okay, who else? And just like lean on other family members. Like, another example I always give is like, get your mom's Christmas card mailing list. Get into, other people's database that you're close with to where there's a connection, right? Because at the end of the day, like, your mom's friends, as an example, right, are likely going to know who you are. And if they're friends with your mom, then there's no reason that they wouldn't be supportive to you as well. Now, again, a lot of those people may not be on the wedding list, and that's okay, but this is the additional layers that you get into. and trying to find the data in order to market and lead generate too. And here's what I can tell you guys, the world that we live in, I mean, rewind the tape 15 years and imagine how difficult this was to pull off in comparison to now with the, you know, the World Wide Web that's out there, right? I mean, social media is a huge tool to take advantage of. So if you're not taking advantage of it for your business in the form of a, you know, database fuel, so to speak, like it's just, you're making it more difficult for yourself. I mean, literally 15 years ago, we would have had to open up a phone book and find addresses, right? I don't know if Realist was around on the MLS at that point. Probably, I don't know. I can't comment. But like, it's so easy to, you know, essentially stalk people for lack of a better word, for the benefit of you building your database and your business. Take advantage of it. There's a couple of comments in the chat. I want to make sure I don't get behind. Okay, thanks, Linda. Yep. Everyone in command, phone, social media platform, trying to get it all in command. Yep, perfect. Social media, go flow, posting routine. Now I need the exposure and engagement. Okay, yep. So yeah, I mean, that second comment, Linda, would be essentially you have your initial database established and now you're adding layers to it by, you know, that have not met category of everybody else out there in the world, and who can you capture and bring into your world and nurture over time is essentially the game. 100% us. More than here. Yeah. So yeah, comment in the chat box. Linda's got a few things. You know, nothing is worse than to hear that somebody didn't work with you because they had no idea that you're in real estate. That's on us. Like, that's an us problem, not a them problem, right? Here's what also commonly happens is, like, you know, again, getting back to that, you know, they have a choice to use you or not, but if you're doing it the right way, they shouldn't have a choice to remember that you're in real estate. This happens all the time. And whether it's like, you know, some people just want to keep business and personal life separate. Okay. There's people like that out there, where, you know, they'd rather work with a stranger than work with somebody they know, because whether it's less stressful or there's just not, you know, not that personal tie to it, to where if something goes wrong, you know, you're ruining a relationship type of thing. But then there's also the example of, like, you know, hey, sorry, Jason, yeah, I'd use you, but my new girlfriend, her cousin just got licensed. I got to use her or I'm going to be in a heap of trouble, right? And you know, think of that example as success, because they're actually acknowledging that they chose not to use you, and they could have, because they remembered you because of what you're doing. And from there, that doesn't mean that they're not going to refer you to other people. And that's probably a likely scenario, because chances are girlfriend's cousin who just got licensed doesn't know what the hell she's doing and provided a miserable experience for that person. And, you know, just reaffirms that you're the person that they should be working with more than ever. What do you guys think so far? What, you know, again, this is a relatively straightforward topic, but, like, it's so important to have clarity on, so that you know who to focus on, and then how to, you know, add more people to focus on, you know, even more, you know, in terms of the size of people that you're marketing to. I mean, there's a, I don't know where these statistics come from, right? But, like, I got this from Bold the last time around, in the winter here, early spring. And I think somebody can correct me. I think it was 16.4% of everybody's database out there. 16.4% of the people in it will transact in real estate this year. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that 16.4% are going to buy or sell or buy an investment property themselves, but there's a mix of people doing it themselves and then people that have a referral for you.
So then I sent them.
Okay, so that's like, if you have 100 people in your database, there's 16 transactions up for grabs total. If you have 232, 464, right? 800, 128. You see how this scales appropriately. So your ability to capture that percentage of 16% of everybody is essentially like the tactics that you're using to, get business, right? And convert it. Linda, 16% is huge. Yeah, I honestly don't ask me where that data comes from. I'll assume that the experts of creating bold, they're putting it out, have some science behind it, but it's just a good thing to go by, and it makes sense, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a ton of people that buy and sell homes every year, so that for every it's tough to not come across somebody who doesn't know somebody who bought or sold a home this year, or they're not going to do it themselves every year. But think of it that way. Everybody that for the most part, probably knows somebody who did something in real estate this year. So now if you're using that database to create as many advocates as possible to go out and tout your business and give you referrals, you're not to go pyramid scheme here, right? But now you're taking all the people on first level. Think of like profit share, right? Your first level is all the people that you've sponsored into the company, and then there's people you had nothing to do with that are second, third, fourth, seventh level. If you can create that sort of mentality with the people that to where as many people in there are core advocates for your business and are out there, they're out to dinner with their friends that you don't know at all or well, and real estate gets brought up in that conversation. And then they're like, look, you got to call my guy, Jason, he'll take care of you. Now you're really cooking with gas in your business, because now you can expand your database that much more. Another analogy that I use is, the people that the wedding list, right, is the turkey at Thanksgiving. Okay. Everybody else out there in the world would be the gravy. So whether it's online leads, whether it's door knocking, whether it's, circle prospecting, farming a neighborhood, whatever it is, that's all gravy for the turkey. Okay. And for the most part, most people like to have gravy with their turkey at Thanksgiving, right? And to take it a step further, it would be okay for somebody who didn't and just likes their turkey dry, and they have strictly a sphere-based business and don't do anything else in terms of, other than meeting people by referral to grow their business, right, or grow their database. It would be fine for people, it's totally fine business model as long as you're purposeful within that database model to not have like an online lead generation plan. Totally fine. But most people don't eat gravy soup at Thanksgiving, right? Meaning you're only building your business off of people that you don't know. So that's super important, because, again, just back to those conversion rates of like 50 to 1, ballpark, whatever it is, for the people that you don't know, in comparison 12 to 1 for the people that you do. If you're consistent with the lead gen and the marketing around it, again, that's a key to those conversions. That means like you're consistent with a lead generation plan and a marketing plan for the people that you have in your database. If you're doing that, it's going to be 12 to 1 for the people and 50 to 1 for the people that you don't know. So where would you rather focus your efforts? And I guess like the turkey and the gravy analogy is like, yeah, there's a harmony between the entire world of people out there. You just got to be purposeful within it. Now, another topic I wanted to get into is, how to communicate with the database, right? And how to make it easier to communicate with a database. And what I mean by that is like just this lead generation topic, as we discussed previously, like, guys, it's hard. You're failing all the time. It's frustrating. You're going to feel like you're stuck in the mud and you're not making any progress with it. But if you can find a way to make it easier to just, get up and go and make those calls or make those connections and feel comfortable with it, that's half the battle. In two parts of that. One would be have your system tell you who to call and when, or who to contact and when, right? And then the other part is like having, we get wrapped up in this term value or bringing value to a situation or for a client or a person, right? And we get, paralyzed, that paralysis analysis type of thing of like, you're in lead gen mode and then it's like, okay, what am I going to talk to this person about? And therefore it's that much more difficult to actually make the call. And you're at a high risk of actually just not even making a call because you don't do that because you're nervous or whatever it is. So if you develop easier ways to communicate with your database and keep a relationship with your database, that's value. When I hear value, like bringing value to the relationship, I don't think about real estate with that. Because don't worry about blowing somebody's mind with some real estate statistic or concept or whatever. Again, back to the lead generation conversation, they don't care. Different than like if you're, working on converting a lead or consulting with somebody on real estate, like, yeah, then you got to bring relative valuable stuff around whatever it is that they're asking about or whatever their situation is. Until you get to that point, nobody cares what you have to say about real estate for the most part. Now, I'm not saying like, don't talk about real estate. Okay. But it's just like, when you get that question, hey, how's the market? They don't really care. I mean, and even if they just assume they don't, because some people may actually be interested, right? But just assume that's like small talk to where they're just trying to get through the conversation and they know you're in real estate. Hey, how's the market going? Cool. Or I hear stuff out there. Good. Okay. Right. It's just a reciprocal type of thing going on within that conversation. So here's a couple of things, how I think of it to make things easier for lead generating with your database. Is one, like this kind of goes back to the system side of it, to where every time that you have a conversation or do anything in an attempt to lead generate, make sure that you keep notes around what you did last. So whether it's what you talked about last, or, if, and this is outside of the value type thing, but if you've called somebody 4 times in a row and they haven't picked up, your system should drive you to know, like, okay, probably shouldn't call them again because they're not picking up. Why don't I fire off a text instead? And then you may find that to be successful, or like, oh, they responded right away. Go figure, right? Now their preferred method of communication is texting. Now it's going to be easier for you to lead generate to that person moving forward. Okay. Another example of keeping notes would be, and this is back to the value add type of thing. You're just providing value for the relationship. So, and I probably went through the same spiel in the lead gen class of, if you're picking up on, you're talking to Johnny and Johnny Jr.'s in football this fall, and you make a note of that, and you call him 3 months from now and you're asking how many touchdowns Junior scored. That's what I'm talking about in terms of bringing value to the relationship. You're showing that you care about their personal life, and you're not just calling them out of the blue on a Tuesday to see if they are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate or know anybody else that is. You're starting it off with like, hey man, how Junior do this year in football? How many touchdowns he get? Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. You know, and that's going to blow their mind more than, hey, want to have an update on interest rates, or would you be interested in a free CMA for your house? If they don't have to move and are not interested at all doing anything about moving, no, they're not going to want, they don't care. So, when we think of this term, how to bring value, right? Think of it that way, intricate and personal to each relationship. And what's going on with that person versus like, how do I blow their mind and with a real estate topic? Because, and if you can get systematic around like having that information, and what I mean by that is as simple as just like keeping notes about what you talked about last. And then if it makes sense to refer back to that in the next conversation and doing it, how easy is that compared to like, what am I going to talk about today with this person? You're just wasting time because you're like stuck trying to figure out what to talk about before you call them. And B, even if you do get the courage, so to speak, to make that call with nothing good to talk about, there's a high risk that, it's just, I should say it's common that people just end up or they skip it because they have nothing to talk about. So providing ammunition or fuel for your conversations is huge. Now, another thing to think about in terms of how to go about this, and this is, I guess, our formula is more in I'll call it passive lead generation or like relationship building strategy versus aggressive. And what I mean by that is that, we're more focused on the relationship and how to go about that, and having a passive route to, getting to the point where real estate is brought up between us, compared to the aggressive side of, just that script of, hey, who do you know looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Now, here's what I'm going to say. Okay. I am by no means saying that if you can pull off and your business model involves the aggressive side of lead generation and the tactics around that, I'm not saying that's wrong. Okay. What I've come to find out, or what I've acknowledged, is like, that's not for my personality. And I think it's really not something that most people in the industry are really comfortable with. And the reason for that is, if the downside to that may be that like you just, people get kind of turned off because like, okay, here's Jason again asking me if I got a referral for his business. And that may be, something that just they get sick of over time, in comparison to like, oh, cool, Jason asked me about Johnny Jr. in football last time we talked. I wonder what's going on with him. Let me pick up this call. That's my prescription for lead gen. Again, by no means am I saying it's wrong to be more aggressive in that saddle. Like, good, if anything. I think a lot of this comes down to like, again, what I started talking about in the beginning of like, how can you create easy ways to go about this business? And if you're not comfortable with being aggressive, there's likely to be a disconnect there. So another thing that we do to make things easier is we have a team. So there's more resources for us to be able to hold events and to be able to do client giveaways every month, stuff like that we take advantage of. But the reason that so like our plan, we do, now that we're out of COVID and the last couple of years, right? Like we've gotten back into the saddle of our goal is a client related event of some sort 4 times a year. So every quarter. And then we're pretty consistent where every month we're doing like some sort of raffle based giveaway type thing. Okay. So some examples of events are this, the Rochester Red Wings here in Rochester is the minor league team. We did, we marketed to our database of, hey, we'll treat you to a ball game. It was like a Thursday night, I think it was, over the summer in June. And, just marketed that way. And we had 400 people that we bought a ticket for that night. Here's the point is that is only a success if you use that event for marketing touches and for lead generation around it. Meaning like how much easier is it to call somebody in your database with, hey, I just want to make sure you got the invite that we sent out, for the Red Wings game a couple weeks from now. No problem if you can't make it, but I want to make sure you got it. I figured I'd, see how you're doing and, while I'm doing this. However that conversations go. So much easier to do that in comparison, like, what the hell am I going to talk to this person about? So for me, from my position, and not to sound like, that I'm not okay with having a budget for this or whatever, right? But it's like, I'd be totally fine if 50 people showed up to the Red Wings game versus 400. And, we had thousands of touches and thousands of conversations, with each agent throughout their database around this event. That's it. Events, stuff like that is to make it easier to lead generate. So if there's opportunity for you to do, things like that may not be real estate related other than being tied to your brand, do it and take advantage of it for the purpose of lead generating and marketing and getting those touches. Because now each event, like we can get 4 or 5 touches minimum out of it, right? So there's like the whether it's a postcard or an email that goes up, 1 touch for the initial invite. There's a follow-up RSVP type of thing that goes out. There's 2 touches. You like our agents, like I'm upset if they're not calling their database around the events to, see if they can come. So now you got a personal connection. You see them the day of the event. If they do come, that counts, right? There may be a follow-up survey or whatever, or even another follow-up conversation. Hey, it was great seeing you, a week ago. Appreciate you coming. Just wanted to say thank you. Just because a lead generation plan, like for me, is 4 times a year, doesn't mean that you can't have more than that, especially if there's like low-hanging fruit type opportunities to where, it makes it that much more easier to contact people with and to communicate with your database and to touch it and conversate and everything like that. Same thing with like, we do a monthly raffle on our team where we give, last month, September, I had a client who I saw was just a big Bills fan and has been doing these like sketches. She uses pens and she does like these awesome sketches of, players and whatnot. So I commissioned her to do a drawing for us, whatever she calls it. It was Josh Allen, like, flexing in the end zone type of thing. And, we framed it and, had a huge response from it. So it's in line. We did it at the beginning of September when football season, everybody's amped up for it. Obviously there's a lot of buzz around the Bills. Huge opportunity to take advantage of. So be creative with your database and how you communicate with it is essentially the point I made there. Can you describe how you use referral fees or? So Linda, you're talking about giving a kickback to somebody in your database? Are you able to come off mute, Linda?
Yeah,
No.
sorry,
Yeah.
it has been occasionally so noisy here.
No problem.
I got a big project, so everybody's gonna be quiet for a minute.
You're good.
So, no, so whether it's a colleague or, I mean, well, KW has a referral program, where it's 25%. And or another agent will refer to another agent. When we have somebody within our circle, a close friend or just another colleague from another line of work who has, given us a referral, we haven't even said anything up front to them, but after the deal closes, like say it's a house in the, 300,000s, we have, gone out and gotten like a really nice gift card and, got them a gift card, which, we've never given cash out to anybody, but we usually get a really nice gift card of a couple $100 and, and say, thank you so much, for, helping us connect with this client but we never made it into a formal program. Like I've heard some teams do Starbucks cards that they can reload. And then they literally just give somebody a Starbucks card. And then if they get a referral from them, they put $20 on or $25 on the card and they just load it. And then just trying to figure out, we would like to have a formal program, but not really sure how to put words around it. Want to make sure that it doesn't sound shady. And I don't think it's regulated by RESPA. It's not really a kickback because
So you're saying like you actually want to market, hey, if you refer us business, we'll give you this.
I don't know if we want to market. I think we want to keep it to our circle. We want to keep it within our.
Yeah. So I think I don't,
say,
here's how I think of it is formalize the consistency around how you do this in terms of the actual giving of gifts or whatever it's going to be. Right.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, I don't, and that's why I asked, like, are you thinking, okay, is this like a marketing piece that goes out? Because I'm not saying you can't.
Yeah. I don't think it's a regulated thing.
Right. That's what I was just stumbling over.
It's really no different than lead gen, only it's like within our closer circle. Let's say I have a colleague and she's now semi-retired. Her network is amazing. So I want to give her like a card. It looks like an invitation and have the right words in there to say, Katie, we really value every time you share our name out. And, if, we want to make you a formal partner in our referral program. And then, if she, if we do have a closing like that, I just don't know how to put the words around it. So
here's how I think of it. And I hear what you're saying. And I don't think it's a bad idea to like, have that formalized, like worded card, whatever it's going to be, right? Go out to your core advocates, right? Or people with a powerful network that you want to, continue to tap into through these referrals. The way that I think of this is just, you're achieving the same by the actions that you have around, rewarding them when they do refer a client and sending them something or taking them out to dinner, or this, again, like if you had this type of VIP feel to events or, client gifts or whatever, if you're just consistent with that, I think that's where I go to, where I think of that as achieving the same. And if not, potentially even more, because like it's, I guess the risk to what you're talking about could be, and I'm not saying it is to where I wouldn't recommend it, but it could be that it's like too salesy almost, right? Where it's like, you're almost like, hey, I'm only really contacting you hoping that you give me business. And I guess that's kind of the philosophy that we have is more so like, let's just contact them to talk about the Buffalo Bills, or, let's get a beer at a Red Wings game and not, have anything tied to it other than that.
Yeah, well, and then the other thing is I'm thinking that, the times that we have done this, those folks already know, or that probably if I refer them another three or something $1,000 house, friend of mine, whatever sell, I'm probably gonna get that bonus again.
Well,
Yeah.
then that's what
And
that's
word
what
of
I mean
mouth.
too. If you're consistent with that reward, like it's sort of like a Pavlov dog thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, the last time we had one, it was the paralegal in the attorney's office that gives us a lot of referrals. And she, referred somebody, she made a big deal about how they were very special. Please take good care of them. And, after the closing, she was so worried about everything throughout. And at the end of it, she was so relieved and sent us a nice thank you. So I was like, there was something just about this girl. She was so nice. And I knew she was going through some stuff. We went and bought one of those little nylon coolers at Walmart that was like $10. We put 6 steaks in it that were IQF steaks that we got from Palmer's. And we put in $100 gift card with the steaks and left, and like text alerted her and said, hey, is your Ring camera working? She's like, yeah. And we were like, well, check your camera. And she's like, what is that? We're like, go get it. So she went and got off the porch. It was a big deal. I think we get referrals from her forever.
Yeah. And I think,
like
my point is
steak,
like, if you're
right?
consistent with those actions with as many people as it makes sense to be, they'll know. Because ultimately, like, they get it. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of reputation we want to build, is that we take care of our clients, and every client's a VIP. And then, also the people that refer them are VIPs. So we want to build that, but we're struggling. And I think the struggle is where we should be paying attention to the fact that if it's a struggle, we're probably off track.
So talk to me about the struggle, if you don't mind.
The struggle for deciding, like, how would we formalize it? I think that the struggle itself is the notification from the planet that we are off track and probably shouldn't do it. Just like you said, leave it organic and just treat each person individually, and don't formalize anything. Just do what we're doing on a case-by-case basis, and the word of mouth will take over.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and again, I'm not saying to like have a formalized strategy to where you're actually marketing this program that you already have, right, is wrong. If you're consistent with it already and getting results from it already, it's already working. It's just a matter of like, you weigh the risk reward type of thing around this, to where it's like, okay, if we start putting this in writing and really making a push with it, does that provide a benefit, or is it a detriment potentially?
Yeah. And
I don't know. I may be overthinking that aspect or that thought, right? But that's just where my brain goes with it.
No, I think I get into overthink, and then overthink to inertia. It happens. And
Yeah.
so I think
But
it's
here's what I just heard from you, Linda, is like, you're already doing something great at a high level. The opportunity may be where, like, how many more people should you or could you be doing this with?
right.
And then continuing on there to where it's like you just see how many more referrals it brings in as a result, right?
Yeah, well, we got to do something, because the attorney that was giving us a very large percentage of our volume has decided to pull out of real estate. She's had it. New York is driving her crazy. There's not enough profit in it for her law firm, and she's cutting real estate off of the list of services. So we're like, what was that?
Well,
Like, wait a minute.
so the way what I'll say is, like, you still have that relationship. She's still, I guess it'd be different if she was just totally retired, right? So she's still working and having relationships herself. So if you, again, this is where she's in your database. If you continue to lead generate to her, if you continue to, reward her and so on and so forth. Yeah, I get it. Like, there may not be as much business coming in, right? But it's just a matter of that's not like it's a dead opportunity altogether, right? Don't get me
Right.
wrong, I get what you're saying in terms of she's no longer a direct connection to, a lot of business that she had to refer, but that's just kind of the mindset.
Yeah, so the hurdle for us is we actually, I mean, it's gonna sound bad, but we actually have to start focusing and working on lead generation where we really never had to up until now.
I'll do.
Yeah, it was a slap, we are like, oh, we actually have to work harder now. Okay.
We all do. Listen, here's what I've wrapped my head around recently, and I think it's shame on me type of thing to not, like, I've always had the mentality of more, right? With the market that we're already in, guys, like those that like there's going to be a lot of people that fail with what's ahead, and they're either stuck in their ways to where they're not doing what they should be doing all along, and then they don't look to improve it all. Those people will probably fail. The people that just survive out of the market coming up is going to be those that just kind of, continue on with a decent level of consistency that they already have. There's a huge opportunity for people to thrive in this business moving forward in this market, but that's going to require more consistency, more activities, more purpose. It's just, there's no way around it, right? If you want to truly change your life and be a part of this, there's a redistribution of wealth that happens in times like these, right? If you want to be a part of that, like, it doesn't happen through osmosis. And I'm not picking on you, Linda. It's just a general comment in terms of, like, we all need to be in that mentality that you just laid out. You've just got like a direct, like, pain point as to why that really needs to happen. But for those that, and I assume everybody on this call wants to thrive with what's ahead, like, it's just going to require more of everything.
Right. Well, particularly for our team, our struggle is that none of us are full-time agents. We all have multiple streams of income, all related to real estate. But, we did that because at times like these, going through a shift, if we don't have some consistent income coming from any of those other endeavors, like investment property, rental income, and sometimes those things take a lot of time and effort. Like, we have 3 houses all at the same time coming up on inspections, renovations, and tenant flip, moving tenants in and out.
Yeah.
So it's like all of a sudden, we're going to have to dedicate a lot of time to that. And how do we still manage the daily activities that we need to do to have good habits with real estate? So it's, so it can be a real serious challenge. I mean, we're all working more than full time, but not at any one single thing.
Yeah, no, I get it. My
But I think
argument would
that's what Gary
be,
Keller's talking about right now with the shift, and you have to have multiple streams of income, not to say that they're advocating that you go out and get a job working at,
Right.
Bruegger's Bagels, and then, they're talking about professional real estate, but there's so many different angles and incomes that you can derive. So,
yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, to me, the way I think about it, the answers of how to pull all of that off, right? Because can't speak to the other streams of income, right? But to just take your real estate sales business and apply the focus within these simple categories of lead gen, database, systems, that's where the answers lie to me. That's how I think of it. And then it's, okay, figuring out that plan and getting up and doing it. Executing the plan is the difficult part. Creating the plan is relatively easy. It's the doing it part that can be difficult. So just make sure that your plan is practical for the time that is available. That's all.
Yeah. And patience and perseverance, right?
Yeah, that's all part of it. And that's the conversation I hosted around lead generation is, very much a patience-based conversation. If you're doing it at a good level, you're getting 5 appointments out of 100 for new business. That means you had 95 conversations in whatever period of time that in theory didn't lead to anything, but you're filling buckets of water with drops. So there's a conversation that doesn't lead to an appointment or doesn't lead to a lead is still a drop of water in that bucket. And that's where the patience comes into play, because without that mindset, the topic of that first week that I hosted was like, imagine you're a new agent and you get told to go out and call 100 people in your first week and be bold and all that. And then you're thinking you got next to nothing. And you probably do, but that's just, it's got to be a patient game. So good stuff though. Thanks for chiming in, Linda. What anybody else have anything on topic, off topic? What can I help with? I got some time, so.
I got a weird thing.
Fire away.
So I've got a lady same lady that's got this great network, and she left me a message last week and said, I've been thinking, I actually sent her to Kim because she was like, I think I got this real estate thing, I love it. I just love it. I'm like, well, then you should go to a class and, whatever, get on board, and you should come to Keller Williams because it's, it's so great. And she said, well, I guess she's like not ready for that stuff. I'm like, whatever, you're ready. She then called me back another day and said, I've been thinking about our last phone call. And she goes, what if I just get you guys, basically referrals? She called it something else. And I said, so you want to develop leads? She goes, yeah. She goes, there's whole companies that charge money for this. She doesn't even realize that she's talking about lead gen companies and stuff that charge for that. So she sort of like suggested that she could low key work for our team to generate leads for us. And I don't know.
She's already licensed?
No, she's not. So she can't have real estate conversations legally.
Right.
And I'm not sure if she's ready to go get licensed. I think she just wants to call up her whole network and try to get us appointments with friends that might be moving, or just to refer us, not talk about real estate, and then have a fee for every referral. I think she's talking about that. And I said, well, let me just, let me just think about it.
So,
I don't really know.
essentially she's talking about being an ISA. Let's think of it that way, right?
Kind of, yeah, but not quite the full ISA as Keller Williams would define it, and the full position. I think she wants to be very low key casual.
I guess so. You're the rainmaker or the team owner, or
Yes.
do you have payroll set up?
I do have payroll set up through my other company. Yes. I have my people that work for our team paid through my other company.
Okay. So I'm not giving accounting advice to CYA here, right? But I guess the only way the brokerage isn't going to be able to chip off whatever fee to her directly, right?
Right.
So therefore you've got to take in everything and then disperse from there if you're going to structure this.
Right. I would, to avoid any sort of like shady state dealings, I would have to put her on as a 1099.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but she's basically talking about being an ISA, because ISAs don't have to be licensed.
So maybe if I could figure out if she could have proven success, have some kind of structure, and we could really benefit from it, then maybe I could cultivate her more directly into the ISA role and sort of steer her in that direction.
Yeah, it's sticky because the risk with really any ISA role to where they're not licensed is it's tough to not have a licensed required conversation when you're trying to achieve what they're achieving, right?
Right.
So, you gotta be really careful with it and looking out for the, the overall good of you and the company.
Exactly. No,
And
I'm
the
glad you
brokers
mentioned
too. I
that.
mean, there's a lot of liability involved with that, and it's not easy, but
Yeah.
also not impossible, I guess is how I would phrase it. But yeah, she's essentially talking about an ISA, but she'd have to understand, like, basically it's just, hey, are you willing to talk to one of our agents? I can't talk to you about anything. That's
Well, I mean,
that's ISA world, right? So it's a tough world.
I mean, getting licensed doesn't mean you have to make the full commitment to the GRAR and everything else. I mean, so it doesn't have to be the higher cost. You could get licensed. And so it's a time commitment. And I know that wants to be somewhat retired, yet feel like she's generating an income and adding value somewhere. I think that's a big part of it. It's only slightly money driven. So but I think maybe I'll explore more conversations with it and see if we can get her to, if she's willing to go get licensed and be that serious about it, then it may be worth us investing, in return, because it's an investment for us too. Everything that takes time away from me, I'm working a ridiculous amount of time every day with all the different hats. So, to take something else on, I think folks don't realize, like, I want to help the team. I'm like, well, it's also an investment for me to now manage another person.
And that's just it. And then one of the things, like how I would combat this almost on your end with her, or, in this conversation is, if there's not a willingness to get licensed, right, and go through 75, 80 hours of coursework, right, that's fairly mundane, straightforward to get through, is she going to be willing to, like, train to how things need to be done, to where this is all worthwhile anyway?
Right.
So
Yeah. So we'll have to see.
yeah, definitely be careful with it. I mean, it's there's, as you mentioned, the RESPA stuff and all that, like, it's stuff that you got to dance around for sure. So I would use caution.
Exactly. I think the next conversation would have to be to have her. She is not an unsavvy person. She herself was a CEO of a decently, but probably under 800K revenue company per year, but still a serious company. She was a CEO for a long time. And so I think that the next conversation would be, she would understand the need to say, what would be my ROI, and, quantify what, how much do you think you could generate revenue wise? I think that would be the next, to dial it up to a level of seriousness and see what she says about that. So, no,
my comment around what you just said, and she, savvy or not, right? She doesn't know. Right. So you just coming at it from the angle of, like, how much revenue are you going to make me? Like, she has no idea. So you got to dive into, like, back to the lead generation course that I hosted, right? Back to the systems course. Like, hey, here's how you do this if you're going to be successful. Is this something that makes sense for you, that you're willing to start chewing on?
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess to put some numbers to it, it would have to be almost like unit driven. Like, how much effort do you want to put in, like, to make a commitment? How much effort do you want to put in to be able to generate these kind of numbers? Like, we have to generate this many units to generate this much revenue to be able to generate this much income for you and still have enough for the house. That sort of conversation.
Yep.
So boil it down to units. That would be a little bit easier to wrap a mind around for her, and based on that number, 16% is a really good number. And I appreciate getting that from you today.
You might know that's 16% of just, like, general population. What happens? That's not like 16% that you're actually gonna, that's the possibility. That's not the 16% that you're actually gonna convert. So your conversion rates lie within that 16%.
Gotcha.
So 16 of 100 people in your database will have something to do in real estate this year.
And
How many
much
of those 16 are you gonna be able to get?
Right, I gotta write that down. Thank you.
No problem. Good stuff. Feel free to reach out anytime though. Anybody else have anything they wanted to address or get answered? Good stuff. Thanks for joining, everybody. Everybody have a great weekend. As always, feel free to if I can help with anything, reach out anytime. Okay.
Thank you.